Wakey, wakey. Hello, good morning. You bang on time for Global Today here on Morning Prime. I trust you had a lovely restorative night and you're ready for the day. It is the 15th of November 2023, and of course every Wednesday we focus on foreign policy, diplomacy and security, just looking around what is happening in the region and of course locally and the entire world, just totally following also what is happening in the Middle East as far as the warring faction is concerned. There's a lot that we have to cover today, new developments that we do have. We had the president of, the leader actually of Sudan here in the country, who had agreed, this is the chairman of the Sudanese Sovereign Council, Chairman Abdel Fattah, and President William Ruto, who have agreed to hold a meeting of Intergovernmental Authority on Development. We shall be giving you that more details much later in the course of the program. And Salva Kiir is to lead also the East African community. And we shall be looking what does it really portend for that particular country and the EAC and Ethiopia also quest for peace, where we have rebels from Ethiopia's Oromia region saying that, of course, they're seeking for peace, happy medium, and they're in Tanzania for a second round of talks with Ethiopia government, which is trying to end the decades of fighting. We shall be giving you that as well. And looking at the US politics as it is right now, we have Michael Johnson, who is a top-notch Republican who has endorsed Donald Trump as it is. And it shows that Donald Trump right now is leading in the polls. What does it portend moving forward? Will he be back as president of the US? We shall be also looking at that with our panelists. We'll be joined momentarily by Dr. Hassan Kanenje, who is the director of the Horn Institute. Also we'll be joined by Professor Peter Kedwanja, who is the CEO of Africa Policy Institute, historian and of course archaeologist, so to speak. He is Dr. Ken Ombogi, and we'll have Yusuf Hassan, who is in the delegation of course, Parliamentary Committee on Defense, Foreign Policy and Relations, and also Intelligence. That is much later in the course of the program. But for now, let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. We begin with the ball paper. This is what you're waking up to on the front page of The Standard. My 120-hour ordeal with kidnappers. But just give me a minute as I sort out my mic. I think it's crackling a bit, so just be looking at the headline as I make sure I keep mum. I sort it out so that I don't make noise for you in the morning. Thank you for being amazingly patient there. This is what is on the front page of the Standard. Let me just go back so that we can go together before we head to what the Daily Nation was. My 120-hour ordeal with kidnappers. Who is fooling whom? That is a question. Anjeri, the woman at the center of 17 billion shillings oil import dispute, says she was held captive in the windowless house for 120 hours and given the option of either surrendering the diesel or facing death, even as other documents emerged casting more doubts on on the real ownership of the fuel import lot. You have a story on page 2 of the Daily Nation this morning, and that's the eye-popping figure that is the controversial cost of fuel that Miss Anjeri claims to have imported, and which is now subject of a raging dispute involving top-notch upper reaches officials of government, as it is being revealed. You can read all the details inside the Standard this morning. Also, KRA loses 791 million shillings tax appeal battle. The dispute that he says here, judge rules that it was unfair and illegal for taxmen to demand records that are over 5 years old for audit. The story continues on page 18 of the Standard this morning. Weakening of the shilling pushes up loan budgets. Now the government has actually, or the Budgetary Allocation Committee has now given 200 billion shillings to cover this deficit as it is. You can follow the story on page 7, and also quite a revelation there from Control of Budgets as far as the sum of the 2 billion shillings loan that were sought out, but it's never seen in the books anywhere. This is a story that you can follow inside the Standard this morning. Long search for police uniform to lift its image. That continues. There's a special report there on page 8 and 9 of the Standard, and state it's up 74 billion shillings fund at CBK. You can follow the story in the business pages of the Standard this morning. Xi to meet Biden at US Summit. That continues on page 21, face-to-face now. They will be meeting, and the story also you'll find it in the Channel Daily on this particular platform. Africa's hunt for World Cup slots starts. This is the story you can follow on the page or on page 32 of the Standard this morning. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy of the bold paper. Ruto, Sudan leader, close ranks on peace. President Ruto and Sudanese leader Abdel Burhan agree to work towards an all-inclusive talks to find peace in the Horn of Africa nation. We'll follow this story for you also later in the bulletin with us, and we shall discuss this as well. What does it really portend? This has been such a holy grail in Sudan right now, still conflict that is ongoing there, and we hope right now the frosty relationship is thawing, and this will be a big break as far as the region is concerned. This is the Standard. Looking on top there, I've given you all the details on the teaser there. You can follow the stories there. The Daily Nation, face behind 117 billion shillings fuel. That is a splash. And imports and export enterprises also deals in curios, handicrafts, and also oil. And this is the face behind it. Businesswoman Anjeri Njoroge, who claims to be the real importer of the disputed diesel, addresses journalists yesterday at the Mombasa Law Courts, days after she was reported to have gone missing. She claimed she was held in a house for 4 days as her abductors demanded that she withdraw the case and leave the country. And this is what she said. They said, "I will never see my children again if I dare to provide false information. I assured them that my statement at the DCI was truthful. The consignment is mine. I imported it from Europe." And it says Anjeri, the businesswoman, at the center of the ownership row over the 17 billion shillings consignment of diesel, resurfaced yesterday, claiming a 4-day kidnap ordeal and torture, even as fresh details emerged on her businesses and dealings in Kenya, Uganda, Dubai, Russia, and Israel. But the paper trail raises more questions than answers, and you can follow the story on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. Kindiki now revises fees for IDs and passports. He's rolling back. Remember, there were bloated figures there that Kenyans now went to social media and decried the fact that they were being extorted by government. And it says here, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki has revoked a government or a gazette notice that increased fees for key documents such as identity cards, passports, birth certificates, and government staff badges, some by as much as 20 times, to allow for public participation following a national uproar. In a new notice, Professor Kindiki announced revised charges allowing Kenyans until December the 10th to submit their views. You can follow the story on page 6 of the Daily Nation. And by the way, if you intend to be going to visit the National Museum, and also those fees are bound to be going up soon, right? This is all in an effort to try and look and smell at every nook and cranny on how the government can get revenues. So just be aware about that. Also, scandal. There's a probing question there. Kenya paid 2 billion shillings for loan it didn't get. This is what the Control of Budget is saying. Taxpayers paid 1.89 billion shillings as commitment fees between July 2022 and September 2023 for loans that have never been disbursed to the country. Control of Budgets Margaret Nyakungo has revealed this. You can follow the story on page 10. And for Budalangi families, floods will never ebb. Local residents are still waiting for the day when they will say bye-bye to floods that have caused widespread destruction of homes, crops, infrastructure and livelihoods, as well as posing huge health and environmental risks. It wasn't me. This is what Murkomen says. Murkomen blames Jubilee for leaking roofs at JKA. That's laughable. You can follow the story there on page 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy if it really floats your boat. Let's see what the star is holding for us. Halwale is revealing silent battle by Musalia and Rugathi. Kirinyaga Senator dismisses Boni, says he brought no votes to Ruto's campaign. The story is on page 2 of the Star. War within. Senator says Ruto's successor will be Aluya and not DP. That is what the flagger is reading on the front page of the Star this morning. And it's dry one moment and deluge the next in Turkana. That is the disparity, and you can see just the devastation, how the floodings actually are impeding transport there. As you can see it there, lorries which have overturned trucks washed away by floods in Kainuk after heavy rains pounded the area, destroying a bridge and made the road there impassable. That is what is happening in other parts of the country. New bill to term erratic transfer of civil servants. If you've been having bugbears, fears and trepidation, you're working in government and you wonder, oh my God, I'm not really getting along with my boss. I might be transferred to far-flung areas of this country, and you have that bugbear fears. So there's something that is coming up, and this is a transfer. It says it will no longer be used as punishment tool for public servants if a new bill currently in the National Assembly is made into law. The Employment Amendment Bill 2023 seeks to tighten guidelines for transfer of government employees from one station or departments to another. You can follow the story on page 7 of the Star this morning. Prepare your passport for jobs abroad. This is what the PA is imploring you. Kenyans youth have been urged to acquire travel documents in readiness for overseas jobs openings. Labour and Skills Development PS Shadrach Mwadime said many qualified Kenyans have been missing out on the advertised opportunities due to lack of passports and police clearance certificates. You can follow all this inside the Star this morning. Powerful figures behind women in controversial 17 billion shillings oil cargo. That is the revelation here. You can follow the story on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. Let's see what the People Daily is holding for us. And the mystery deepens in 17 billion shillings fuel saga. Woman claiming she owns the imported diesel resurfaces in Mombasa. Questions remain on whether government ignored court order. Human rights lobby group accuses state of impunity of a businesswoman's safety. All those are inside the People Daily this morning. And Romania leader in Kenya for business talks, visiting Romanian President Klaus Varna. Iohannis inspecting a guard of honor at State House Nairobi yesterday together with his host, President William Ruto. Witnessed the signing of Memorandum of Understanding on Environmental Protection and Climate Change Cooperation and Sanitary, Veterinary and Food Safety, Agricultural Research and Cooperation, and the Diplomatic Institute and the Foreign Service Academy of Kenya. 85 million shillings still missing from Quickmart money heist. They were arraigned, and you can follow the story on page 7 of the People Daily this morning. Petrol prices unchanged, kerosene and diesel drops. Pressure over cost of living likely to have influenced the reprieve that will last till mid-December. There was worries that anxiety that is bound to go a jot higher, but it has stabilized. Police start to probe over exam leaks in Kisii area. Some answers had been posted in a social media group where it says here, where one candidate was a member. As we buckle down to business, this is what you're waking up to the front page of a Business Daily. Puzzle of 1.9 billion shillings Kenya paid for undisbursed loans. Budget ZA calls on Treasury to be transparent on date. Government advice to review some IMF policies. And it says here, just to excerpt a bit here, Kenyan taxpayers paid 1.89 billion shillings as commitment fees for loans between July 2022 and September 2023 that has never been disbursed. Controller of Budget Margaret Nyakungo has revealed. Dr. Nyakungo while appearing before the National Assembly Committee on Public Debt and Privatization, told MPs that the amount includes 499 million shillings for external loan repayments, commitment fees charged by a lender to a borrower to compensate the bank for its commitment to set aside the funds. Commitment fees typically are associated with unused credit lines or undisbursed loans. You can read all about it inside the Business Daily this morning. Also, stabilization spares consumers new record high fuel prices is what is on the ticker here. Let me just expand it for you, read it together. The state has stabilized fuel prices by up to 19.89 shillings per litre, even as pump prices dropped marginally, offering a slight reprieve to consumers beset by high cost of living. MPs increased mini budgets by 200 billion shillings on debt repayment. It says MPs have increased the country's budget by 200 billion shillings on account of payment of interest and the depreciation of the shilling. That story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. Pension returns negative on falling share prices. Kenyan pension schemes have registered negative returns in the quarter ended September on wider losses from equities. A new survey is showing these revelations, and you can follow the story on page 14 of the Business Daily this morning. Right. We've got a lot to cover this morning, and I just want to introduce our faces that is on the panel, right? I've created first time this morning with Professor Peter Kagwanja, who is the CEO of Africa Policy Institute. Also, we have with us Dr. Ken Obongi, who is a historian from the University of Nairobi. We'll be joined later by Yusuf Hassan, as I've mentioned, who is a committee member on the delegation on foreign policy relations or foreign relations intelligence and diplomacy at the National Assembly, and Dr. Hassan Kanenje as well. Right, let me just hear from Professor Peter Kagwanja. Good morning, good to see you.
Good morning, good morning.
Yeah, you seem to be in good spirits, smiling.
Yes. I had a wonderful weekend.
You had a wonderful weekend?
Yeah, planting trees.
Oh, planting trees, you did?
Yes, we did plant a lot of trees, not just the forest cover, but food for our stomachs.
Food for our stomach as well?
Yes, we went to Roitoktok in Kajiado County, where we planted more than 10,000 seedlings, myself and our foundation. And we were accompanied by PS of irrigation, Alfred Kimodo. We had the MP of the area, and then we had MCAs. So we had literally the whole leadership from the area. And then based on small, I told you the other day that there's a small primary school, almost dilapidated, which we were trying to rehabilitate, called Kirolit. The Kikuyus call it Kiroliti. So it was fun over the weekend. We had most of our friends with us and colleagues. And it worked very well from Saturday, Sunday through Monday. So it was a long, undertaking. On Saturdays, when the school planted its own share of trees, about 2,700. Then the students were 750 carried each two trees to their homes to plant the next day, and then on Monday. We distributed fruit trees that were planted. Obviously, yeah. So it was really fun. I think this thing is going to work. President William Ruto's 15 billion tree cover is going to be done long before the time set for it. If we take that pace, that kind of a pace, good organization, good management of the whole process, we might get that cover very fast.
Fantastic. So do you know the name of the trees that you planted?
Oh, yes.
Well, I think that's the challenge. People try to plant trees, they have no
They have never seen.
Yeah.
If you go
to challenge, I think it's a place to name 10 trees.
No, you've got to distinguish
by name.
You've got to distinguish between about four categories of trees. Obviously, they are fruit trees, and the fruit trees themselves come as indigenous of all foreign. There are other trees we call the forest cover, which can give you wood and give you timber. Then there is a fourth category, which is ornamental plants. When you do the minazis, and the palms. All those are ornamental. So mostly we went for fruit trees that are well known: avocado, oranges, lemon, and mangoes, particularly the new type, so that they produce fast. Then, of course, we went for, there were those pomegranate. There were a few trees, and people have started now propagating them. They're very productive, and they're suitable for this climate. So we went for the pomegranates. Obviously, I'm a historian, like my brother here. So I know all the indigenous trees from Mugumo, Mukoyo, Modega. I mean, but in terms of, but I think
that is a local nomenclature.
Okay,
so
but the most famous tree is Graveria robusta. Graveria,
Graveria robusta.
Yes, it has quite a number of other names among the indigenous people.
What's the indigenous name?
The Kikuyu is Mukima. That's one of the names.
Mukima.
Mufariti. These are how the local people call it. Down there in Kajiado, I think they call it Mukima. Up in Moranga, I think call it Mufariti. So it depends on who is calling it. But I'm not sure it is indigenous. We are avoiding growing, people are avoiding growing eucalyptus because it's reputed to be a water guzzler. And we have shortage of water, particularly during the dry season. So we didn't distribute a lot, but I could see 5 or 4, pieces of eucalyptus there. Yeah. So that's what we did over the weekend, and I want to thank all those people who supported our Mustard Seed Foundation in that exercise.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let me come to Dr. Mbogi, because I hear in Kisii region there are no lands to plant trees, according to Senator Kongo Morgan here yesterday. So there's a drive, but there's no space to plant a tree.
Yeah, you're talking about one of the most densely populated parts of this country, with a very fast-growing youthful population. So back there we have a lot of trees to plant, a lot of rain. Actually, there's an area occasionally we call God's bathroom. But space is quite a challenge. For me, just like Prof here, very interesting weekend of planting trees. I did my small contribution in this, in doing just a few fruits and a few indigenous trees. I remember I planted one, which I don't know what you call it in English, but I only know it in my language. But the significance is the tree, the 2 types of trees we hold when we are becoming men. For those who understand what that means, during initiation, you stand against the tree and become a man. I planted one of those. And the whole exercise actually has some kind of historical resonance. When I was growing up, I think in the days of the 80s, you remember the time of Nyayo, kata moja, panda moja. So, it took me there a bit, and wondering whether we are dealing with a situation which is some kind of Nyayo administration reincarnate of some sort. As probably Prof says, this is a very significant exercise. But how we do it and how we carry it forward might be one area that we need to increasingly interrogate and see what kind of trees we are planting, where we're planting, and overall what do we want to achieve. There have been indications that probably, particularly on the government side, a lot more money was used probably than one could have expected. Though this high-level officials all over the country at this time when the country is reeling from a very interesting economic situation. Probably the exercise could have been done slightly differently using government machinery that is already on the ground, the chiefs, the assistant chiefs, the sub-county commissioners, the county commissioners to run the exercise. So an important exercise which has resonance to where we have come from and also points to our future, but also gives us a chance to ask, we are doing this at what cost at this time?
All right. Let's hear from Mheshimiwa Hassan. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Just looking at how your last week was, especially in your docket in Parliament, and also the tree planting drive as well. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, the tree planting was obviously the high point of the week, given the fact that we had allocated a whole day for this exercise. I was in the constituency, and I led the planting ceremony or exercise. We planted about 4,000 trees, seedlings in my neighborhood. All the 14 locations of Kamkunji were involved. We didn't have any dignitary flying in with a helicopter, so we minimized the damage to the environment. But I think the problem we faced was that there isn't sufficient seedlings.
Okay.
And even when you talk of millions, it's more like an aspiration. But unless we can expand our capacity to produce more seedlings and spread them out, the challenge now is the scarcity of trees to plant, rather than there is a very strong desire and people are really interested. And I think we should encourage that. A very good example where they have done extremely well is neighboring Ethiopia, where the president has led a campaign, a protracted campaign to plant as many trees as possible. And I think they now hold the world record for the number of trees that have been planted recently. I think we need to push on. It's good that the president and his cabinet and everybody is up there helping, pushing, and also encouraging the population, because our forest cover is tiny. I'm told that less than 10% of our country is covered, which means that we are facing a very serious environmental problem when it comes to vegetation. And unless we can reverse that, of course, we would suffer the massive consequences of climate change. And we're seeing that in the arid areas of our country. About more than 50 people have died in the recent rains and the floods that have ensued. Whole sections of areas in northern Kenya are underwater. Everything in its wake have been destroyed. People are displaced. There's no movement. One of the saddest things I saw in the paper, in the social media, is these trucks that have been stuck between Mandera and Wajir, which had perishable commodities, products. They had fruits and vegetables that in the end they had to destroy. They had to throw alongside the road. The other thing is the infrastructure is completely gone. And so there are huge areas of the northern areas that are completely cut off from the rest of the country. And there are farmers along the Tana River who have planted the famous mango trees, the bananas. Everything has been swept away in these floods. So we are actually facing a serious crisis, and probably a bigger humanitarian crisis. And unfortunately, unless we can change what's happening with the environment, these neighborhoods have suffered 4 or 5 years of drought, where the livestock has been decimated by prolonged drought. And now they're going from drought to deluge. They're completely been washed away. So And this is obviously an environmental problem, a climate change problem. And if we don't push very hard on changing our lifestyles, protecting our environment, planting trees, then obviously the worst is yet to come.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you. Let me just introduce Dr. Hassan Kanenje. Good to see you. You're smiling. I know the predicament you went through this morning.
It's okay. It's fine.
But it's good to see you finally.
Yes.
Welcome.
Not to mention the inconvenience caused by trying to get here in the studio.
Yes.
Because of the new constructions on the road.
Yeah, indeed. But of course, it's for the betterment ahead, right?
Yes.
We have to just
You didn't warn us that it was still continuing.
Oh.
We came all the way to the gate.
Pardon me. I should have warned you. But
Yes.
I think I thought given just the nature of how the construction was last week, maybe you'd have...
you forget.
No, not even forget. I thought maybe by now you'll have noted that it can't have been completed by at least within 2 weeks or a week. So it continues apace, I think, for the rest of this month. So we'll bear with us.
Well, I think the Highways Authority, they should also be...
They should notify.
Notifying,
Yes, at least so that, you're not inconvenienced. I know
because all of a sudden you're having some trench there. I'm glad we're actually talking about environment, and Prof, you planned it tons of...
It's not really environment, we're just getting introductory remarks from all of us, yes.
Yes, and Mheshimiwa, I think, did a great job. And those are kind of efforts. Personally, I've always been a very green person when it comes to environmental conservation, in part because the villages where I was born, most of those streams are pretty much dried out, and in part because of the cutting down of trees. Now, the president has been at the forefront when it comes to issue of climate, and that is important. The past few weeks, what is demonstrating, especially in the arid and semi-arid areas of Kenya, is that we need to take this seriously. But at the same time, even as we plant trees, we need to stop cutting them down. So we need to re-examine our policies on logging, as well as allowing citizens to actually farm in forests, because that goes contrary to what we're trying to achieve. It's like we are making 3 steps forward, then we're taking 4 steps backward. And we have to be honest about that kind of discussion if we have to get to the forest cover or the percentage that we need to be able to sustainable. And so for us to engage in contradiction is not really going to help us. It may be politically expedient, but in terms of policy-wise, it's going to be oxymoronic.
Oxymoronic, indeed. Oxymoronic now segues now to a story that is a bit of oxymoronic, that people now do not really know this particular woman, Anjeri Njoroge, a businesswoman linked to a 17 billion shilling diesel import dispute, has been found. The businesswoman is said to have disappeared 6 days ago after she had recorded a statement at the DCI headquarters in Nairobi. In the company of her lawyers in Mombasa, she narrated the ordeal in the hands of her tormentors. Tobias Chanji, start us off.
After she was reported missing on 9th of November 2023, businesswoman Anjeri Njoroge appeared at the Mombasa courts on Tuesday. Njeri gave an account of what transpired on that fateful day when she was sent to record a statement at the DCI headquarters.
Wakati tunasubiri, nilienda kumuona CS Chirichir na ndio akaniambia mafuta sio yangu tena, mafuta ni ya kampuni inajiita Garana. Kaambia sijauza mafuta yangu wala sijasaini mkataba na hiyo kampuni inajiita Garana, kwa hivyo mafuta ni yangu. Ndio akasema haiwezekani na nifanye kwenda kwa CID headquarters kurecord statement, na nikafanya vile, na kufika pale after kumaliza ndio ilikuwa wakati wangu wa kutoweka.
She claims she was then taken to an unknown destination where she was repeatedly asked questions concerning the 17 billion shilling diesel cargo that she had imported and had not been cleared.
Aigizwa ndani ya nyumba kiwa nimeshikiliwa nafuata nyayo mpaka nikaingia kwenye hiyo chumba ambayo iko na mattress tu na chain ya kufungiliwa, na nikaambiwa na takikana niseme ukweli na nisidanganye, manake nikidanganya hiyo ndio itakuwa mwisho wangu wa kuishi na wala sitaona watoto wangu tena. Na nikawaambia yale nimeandikisha katika DCI office, it is truth na haina uongo wowote, na hiyo ndio statement nitafuata mpaka kesho yake. Kaniambia atakuja kesho uamue either utaishi hapa milele wala utaenda.
In Mombasa, she had a case against Galana Energies, who are also claiming ownership of 100,000 metric ton diesel, and the case was set for mention.
So wakati wamerudi, imekuwa niyo siku ya kuondoka tena, na wakaniambia nafaa niende kwa sababu hakuna hatia yote wanaona mbele yangu. Mafuta ni yangu na hakuna kitu ingine yote wanaweza kusema. Hawezi kuua mama kama mimi, manake haistahili kwa ukweli.
According to her lawyer Cliff Ombeta, the court had given an order on the 8th of November stopping the discharge of the cargo, a day before she was allegedly abducted. As she was being held, the ship was discharged on the 11th of this month.
On 10th, 11th, they discharged the ship. And the ship now, it was discharged only to deep seas as you're speaking. So shida ni kwa nini mama, what was the reason to put court orders if these court orders are being disobeyed? So what is the reason of court orders? And then today we are being told that the court orders has been discharged, and yet the judge did not address the issue of contempt.
He was told, first of all, you have to leave them, they are not yours. Then the other thing was, now please let's negotiate what kind of commission can we get, or what kind of a cut can we get. When that failed, they said she needs to leave the country now that the goods have already been discharged from the ship. Honestly, this is the kind of thing that we are saying is dangerous for this country. It is dangerous for investors, it is dangerous for the economy. And yet, one of the things she's being told is that she is bringing fuel to this country that is cheaper than what is G2G. Is that a bad thing? Me, I thought it was a good thing.
Human rights activists now say such cases have become too many to ignore.
Huyu mama ni Mungu na wakili wake, na kama si mawakili na Kenya kumwombea, huyu mama wallahi billahi angepotea kabisa. Na masuala haya tumesema si geni. Tunataka koti heshimiwe. Mawakili wanaheshimu koti, ndio maana wanakuja kotini. Lakini serikali ina impunity, contempt kibao, hawajali kwa sababu wao ni serikali.
Tobias Shanji, KTN News, Mombasa County.
Well, very convoluted, like a tangle of tissues there. As you can see, it's a story that is also headlining the front page of a Standard this morning. My 120-hour ordeal with kidnappers. And the problem question is, who is fooling whom? And Jerry, the woman at the center of 17 billion shillings here. You can read all the details there. She says that, as you've heard it, that she was told to choose either the oil or her life. We just want to find out, this is a security concern for her. I begin with you, Honorable Yusuf Hassan. Looking at this particular story, there's so much that really meets the eye. If you look keenly, and the tussle that is going on between KPA and herself, and her being a mysterious woman, and the kidnapping ordeal that is ongoing. There is an oil, 17 billion shillings we're talking about. You can hear government to government deal being thrown and bandied about. What is the real story? And you want to tell me that the government is really none the wiser as far as this mysterious woman is concerned?
Well, there are so many unknowns about this story that, in fact, it is difficult to comment on it because I don't know whether what we're hearing and what we're seeing are the reality or what is the truth. Therefore, it is very difficult for me to really make any informed decision or analysis about this particular story. It is so bizarre. It's weird. It's just out of this world.
Looks like a live wire, Dr. Hassan Kanenje.
I think it's more than a live wire because it's more than meets the eye. But again, we cannot sufficiently comment in a competent way because we don't have full information with regard to the dynamics surrounding, of course, this scandal. I think what is unfortunate is we still having the practice of kidnapping people in this country. And I think for those who lived in the dark days of Kanu, then you realize that is not the kind of phenomenon you want to continue. If people are found or they've committed a crime, there's due process that needs to be followed. And so to the extent that this is still taking place, I think it's a little bit disheartening.
Mm-hmm. But also the kidnapping, she claims she was kidnapped and the threat to her life as well. Peter Kagwanja?
Well, this case is complex just from the look of it on the service. Being the case involving a lady who is a businesswoman and who has a legitimate company, that's the most important to look at. And she's dealing with import-export business. And the legality of the company is not in question. And therefore, Kenya being a capitalist country, I would have been worried if the Interpol are the ones saying that this lady has violated this and this and this. But when it involves local people, then we're really talking about the immature part of our capitalism. Because if we had a mature capitalism, then we'd be very clear to protect her interest if she's a true importer. Second, it exposes the vulnerability of our fuel business, our energy business. And our energy business is vulnerable because it doesn't seem that we have a very clear-cut framework of import-export. Because when you look at the tour of that oil or the tour of the people involved in this particular export, it's amazing because thanks to the Nation newspaper, they have done a good mapping of the route of it. On page 7, and you can see the oil starts somewhere in Israel. Israel was not an oil-producing country. It moves to Russia. There's that circuit. Then you have Dubai. There's another circuit. Then we're now back to Kenya, on its way to Uganda, South Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. That tells you that it is there's some fluidity within the export market, and given the centrality of energy to our own survival as a nation, to the survival of our enterprises and our entire economy, then what we are saying is that we need to take ourselves a little bit more seriously. Third, kidnapping is not a solution to business. When you get to a capitalist system that is based on kidnapping, and so we are very, very close to Colombia. We are really edging close to Venezuela and the Mexico sagas, where capitalism and crime go together. Capitalism and cronyism go together. And I don't think Kenya was cut. The founding fathers of this republic did not envision a Mexico, or if we wish, not a Mexico, but a Colombia, where crime and capitalism, crime and business go hand in hand. That's not what was in the mind. So I think, despite the fact that this case has just popped into our public, and I'm not sure many of us have really looked at it critically, therefore we cannot make assertive, moral statements about whether it's good or bad. But what we can say is that we know the good that we should do. And the good that we should do is to avoid activities like kidnapping, threatening people, and so on. And we have courts, and we let the courts do their business. But I think if this is a legitimate business, for me, as a man who was brought up by a very brave woman who could move to Uganda, to Tanzania and elsewhere, to just ensure that we have school fees and so on. Jerry is my hero.
Jerry is your hero?
Yes, if this business, I put a caveat.
If it's legit.
If this business is legit, Jerry is my hero.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Ken here.
Oh, well, heroine, hero. Dibal, as my colleagues say, this thing is quite interesting. We don't have tangible, clear, authentic information to rely on. The best we can do now is to do a bit of conjecture, a bit of guesswork here. And I see the situation that oscillates between the binary of optimism and pessimism, if you asked me. Optimism, because I'm still of the opinion that the current administration, the president, its ministers and the security agencies have promised us that we live in a country where the police will not be misused, to harass genuine business people or anybody going around his or her business. I take that promise very seriously, because we have come from a very interesting past. And for once, let's give the president, let's give our security forces the benefit of doubt. And that gives me some level of optimism. Pessimism, because when you hear of kidnapping, when you hear of disappearance, when you hear of something looks like lack of obeying court orders. I've had traces of all those in this case. Then we begin to wonder whether we are in a situation where the more things change, the more they remain the same. When you hear cases of not clear situations, we have had cases where people emerge from nowhere, and all of a sudden they are associated with sackfuls of money. We have had that in our own country. So are we then in a situation where the more we try to change things for the better, the more they remain, the same? Now, the story that we are hearing from the service is that this lady goes to the CID headquarters, and somehow she disappears somewhere for a long time. We have had another case of another businessman disappearing the same way. Are we then beginning to see a pattern of challenged, security agencies and the judicial system that cannot be trusted? Is that what we are seeing? I want to hope not, but there are actually patterns of that are beginning to emerge. By now, with the concern of security, perhaps the DCI needs to come out and be clear, issue an official statement that says whether they were involved or not involved in the disappearance of this lady and her reappearance.
Thank you.
If they were not, then they need to nab the people who did that, which is actually very interesting. And I just wish that, let's be in a situation where we don't operate in opaque private or government systems. Let's be a country where things are put on the service and everything is clear.
Thank you.
But that's the idea.
All right, let's head over to JK, where Transport CS Chuma Murkomen has faulted the previous regime for the embarrassing scenes witnessed at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Video surfaced online showing the poor state of the airport after heavy rains left the one terminal flooded due to a leakage or a leaking roof. The CS blamed the previous regime for failing to maintain the airport. Just a few months ago, Murkomen oversaw the departure of the airport's previous boss after an embarrassing blackout affected operations. Another outage affected the airport just this past weekend. The CS spoke in Kwale.
Like for real. Guys, this is Terminal 1C. That's how it's raining. It's leaking all over. Even to the counters. Just check. How about it? This is Terminal 1C. While operations are ongoing.
Watu wengi waliona ile uwanja ilivuja jana wakati ilinyesha mvua kwa wingi. Ni kwa sababu ile renovation ilifanywa kwa Terminal 1C na E ilifanywa kwa nia ya kwamba hiyo uwanja sehemu hiyo ingevunjwa na ijengwe kitu ilikuwa inaitwa infield project. Kwa sababu hiyo infield project ilihitaji pesa nyingi sana. Ile renovation ilifanywa ilikuwa temporary. Na tayari nimeongea na wale contractors walifanya kazi hiyo na wahandisi na wasimamishi wa kazi hiyo, na tumekubaliana ya kwamba lazima hiyo kazi irudiwe kufanywa vizuri. Tunaona projects mingi yenye ilifanywa kwa serikali iliyopita, aswa mwisho ilifanywa kwa haraka na kidogo unaona kwamba haikufikia ile kiwango inahitajika kwa mambo ya projects. Ndio unaona JKIA tuko na shida ya mambo ya stima. Mliona kwamba nilijaribu kusuluhisha mambo ya generator. Juzi bado tulipata shida ya giza, lakini ilichukua muda mfupi kuliko kabla hatujafanya mabadiliko. Nimeambia KA pia wafanye mabadiliko zaidi.
Interesting also looking at the editorial cartoon today in the People Daily has captured this. You can see the aeroplanes traipsing everywhere right there. The air controlling or air traffic controlling tower there. Passengers and aeroplanes trying to locate the leaking JKIA. When we hear the CS really now casting or apportioning blame to the previous regime that it was the previous government's mishap. It's been 1 year plus few months since he took over this docket. So is he navel gazing just on the transport side of his docket and not the public works that should be now overseeing some of his maintenance of JKIA, such a very pivotal, important avenue, I should say, for this country when it comes to international departures and arrivals in transport and aviation?
Well, there is a very, very serious problem at our international airport. And I have commented on this because something is terribly rotten there. And there is a need for the government to strategize and look at how we could resolve the crippling problems that are also of a major embarrassment and are causing reputational damage to our country. And I think if you look at what has happened with the power failures, it is just unthinkable in this age that in fact you would have power outages at an international airport, the most important gateway, the most important exit you have in your country. So for the minister to apportion blame to a regime that has passed, of which he was in fact a part of it anyway, is kind of really not the right thing. What he should have done is to look at inside Jomo Kenyatta's management to see what can be done and fix the problem. He now owns the problem. It doesn't matter who created that particular problem. He's now the Minister of Transport. Kenya Kwanza is the government. The responsibility of running this country, for better or worse, is a mandate that has been given to them by the Kenyan government, by the Kenyan people. So they should govern well and properly, rather than to seek blame, to seek scapegoats from the past. And I think unless we fix the airport, we have problems with the policing of the airport. We have problems with the immigration handling of the airport. We have problems with the custom management of the airport. We have a big public relations disaster in handling tourists and the returning diaspora. It appears as if there is some crazy guy who is deliberately undermining all the efforts that the Kenyan government and the Kenyan institution are putting into place to make sure that in fact we get a large number of tourists coming to our country. We encourage our diaspora to come back and visit their families and spend their money, bring presents and happiness to the families that they have here. And yet you have this situation which actually is undermining. And yesterday, the governor of the central bank said that we were not doing very well with tourism. Our tourism numbers are going down. Tanzania and Uganda's tourism numbers are going up.
It's on the uptick here.
So you ask yourself, why is that the case? Because we have very good national parks. We have beautiful beaches. We have facilities, tourism facilities, good hotels, restaurants, and places to go in our country. Yet we are not receiving the attention we need because of the rigid, reactionary, backward officials that we have at our entry points. And Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is a crime scene. It's a crisis point. The government, the various ministries that are involved in this particular management of this airport, the transport, the immigration, internal security, all of these people should now set up a task force to really deal with this crisis once and for all. Whether it is a leaking roof, whether it is a platform that is not working, the delays, the inconveniences. You cannot attract tourists and you cannot manage traveling if you don't fix your international airport's problem. And this issue of the customs, the over-intrusive, aggressive customs must be dealt also very quickly by the various ministries in charge of this particular place. It is really shameful what is happening there, and it is a terrible dent on our reputation as a country.
Peter Kagwanja, briefly, is the blaming of the other regime for every misdoing that or mishappening that is in the current regime, be it the debts, be it now the JKI, even a leaky roof. Surely, what next?
I thought we were over with elections. I had no problem with the blame game during elections because you have to blame somebody. In every faith, there must be Satan to hold the faithfuls together. And therefore, whether the Satan is real or is not unreal, you have to invent the devil so that you have somebody to blame. So in election time, we allow this. But I think my brother Mokomen must know better that during the governing phase, when we are supposed to implement the manifestos that we promised the people, lies have no place, blames have no place, excuses have no place. And therefore, it is not in good taste that you would say it is the Uhuru Kenyatta or it is so and so who did this. That is really not spot on. That's one. Second, it is important, and I think Mheshimiwa Yusuf mentioned it. I mean, we have been in this system for the last 20 years. Murkomen was at the core of that government. William Ruto was at the core of that government. Everybody was at the core of that government. We understand there were disagreements within it. But Uhuru Kenyatta was magnanimous enough to allow his government to end in the way it ended. And if somebody left the government for this or that reason, there was a reason given. Chil, Kosgei and others. But for this narrative that there was a Jubilee government, UDA. For me, UDA is actually 90% Jubilee. Let's not be kidding Kenyans. Let's tell the truth so that that truth will set us free. UDA, to the best of my knowledge, is Jubilee rebranded, or Jubilee 2.0. That's how it is. And therefore, when you are dealing with UDA, like when I'm dealing with UDA, I feel the way I was dealing with the Jubilee, only that this time loud, the king has changed, the crown has changed the head. The crown is the same, but the head has changed. It's now Miriam, and the other one was Uhuru. So those lies should end at least. Let's move forward on together. 3, Kenya is not managing its international image well, and the consequences are dire. Mheshimiwa has talked about tourism. Let us talk about our flag carrier, Kenya Airways. It is not about bad planes. Nobody complains about the state of our planes. They're good. They're in good shape. But they cannot even make it on time. If you are booked on Kenya Airways, I normally travel to the United States, and these are long distances, and to China. I prefer any other flight. In fact, I prefer the Ethiopian. And anytime I'm buying that ticket, I feel pain, deep pain. Why? Because I should be promoting my own flight carrier. But I'm not sure that I will arrive to Gwangju on time. I'm not sure that the flight will take off the day it promised it to take. And look at Ethiopia. They have managed their flight for, even during the time of war, when they had the worst case in 1991, 1992, the handing of, or the takeover of, Mele Zenawi from Haile Mariam. What happened? The plane had the capacity to relocate to Nairobi and operate from Nairobi, and even that time they operated efficiently. What is wrong with Kenya Airways not operating efficiently? Good planes, good capacity, human resource capacity. What about managing time? Murkomen has been in office for 1 year, for 4 months. Within those years, you did not know that JKA was leaking and you did collect it. So why would you blame somebody 1 year on about that? Let's fix our efficiency as a country.
It is. Right, we'll take a short break right now. Even as we do take a short break, a story is told about the devil who was sitting on a pavement, and he was in a very weepy, teary mode, crying and crying. And a gentleman came and tapped him and asked him, "Hey, devil, what's happening? What's happening? Why are you crying? Why are you in this particular very somber mode?" And they said, "It's the people of the world, all of them.